Hi, welcome to Tea Time with Amy and Bev.
Good day to you.
Good day, chica.
How's it going?
I asked first.
No, you didn't. You did not. We even have proof of it. No, things are going good.
Nice. I'm in a new location today. I am in Phoenix, Arizona. And happy Valentine's Day to you.
Happy Valentine's Day.
Fun. We get to record on Valentine's Day.
It's true.
That's so wonderful.
So I saw that you were, I don't go on the Facebook very hardly ever. And I go on the Facebook the one time and you're talking about a book I think you were reading from Joe Dispenza and you were all excited about it. Please do tell.
Yeah, I was on page 47 and my mind was like, oh, all over the place. And
I think it's
one of
awesome.
those thick books, like it's thick. And I'm thinking, oh my God. I actually have had it for probably about 3 weeks, sitting on my table next to my chair. And it's, it just kept calling me. You need to read me. You need to read me. And I'm like, I don't want to read. I was in my non-reading stage of just like, because I mean, for me, I take in so much every single day. And sometimes I'm like up to here with personal development and all the stuff. And I don't want to read at night. I don't want to read anything else today. So by nighttime, I'm just right. So I was like, okay, I gotta start reading this. Man, does he explains some things. It's like simple, like, he's a doctor, he's a scientist, like he could use some very large words and been very easy to understand and follow along. So just really talking about how we talk in terms of being in the present moment, right? Be here, right now. What does that mean? It means don't think about the past and don't project yourself into future events that probably not going to happen anyway, which is worry and anxiety. But be right here, right now. And it's like the same but different. The way he talks about it is that as long as we are thinking about past experiences, we're living in the past, which I know that. But sometimes because of the way I talk and the language I use, we get stuck in this pattern of saying it a certain way. And then he's like, well, you're just living in the past. You're not living right here, right now. So as long as you are, thinking about all that, it's the same thing we say, but he's using it in a little bit just different wording. And then he has these this diagram in there. It's this wheel, and off of it is, parents, spouse, children, work, anger, like it's just all these things all the way around the wheel. And then he shows how our energy is lapped over each one of those. And it's demonstrating the distortion of our energy. That as long as we're living in the past, or we're thinking about that person, or we're thinking about that topic, or we're thinking about that emotion, like our energy is so distorted, like it's just everywhere but right here. Like we have this little portion because we're so chopped up in all these other areas of life. And just seeing that visual with like, wow, it really put it into perspective. Even though I know this stuff, I've known this stuff, and I think about it frequently, that when they say bring your energy back into you, that diagram just put it into perspective of where our thoughts are and where we're living on a daily basis, like daily, because if anybody's like me back in the day, my 20s and before that, my mind was everywhere else, but except where I was. Unless I was doing some kind of, doing my work at work, having to focus on what I was doing, my mind was focused on that. It wasn't focused on me, and it definitely wasn't focused on love. It was if my mind had any what I call downtime, meaning I'm not focused on something particular, I was totally in the past all the time and not really ever in my present moment.
Totally get it.
Yeah, and so then he's talking about this, I can't even say the word, but the initials for it is IGA, capital I, lowercase g, capital A, and it's immunoglobulin thing, but that's a thing in our body that produces the good feeling chemicals, like it affects our immune system. It affects our digestive system. Like, it's just super important to our way of being, of having a healthy body. And he just talks about that and lets us know, how vitally important it is for us to have this chemical being produced.
Which makes a lot of sense. So that helps people to recognize always, just because there's something that you might be familiar with, there's always a new way for it to be said. I'm always blown away, even with the knowledge that we have right now, both of us. I'm speaking up for you too, because you just kind of said the same thing. With all the knowledge that we have right now, when I hear someone else say it, it's like, holy shit, like that really, that so simply blew me away. But I know this, we know this stuff.
Yeah.
And that's the thing, that's the crazy part.
But he's bringing in a little bit more information on a that I hadn't heard before. And then here's something funny. I just thought this was interesting. So I started reading this, right, on page 47, and I'm getting all this information about this IGA. And then I was doing this 14 days of self-love and showing up every day, talking about self-love in whatever way, right? So I read that, and I actually shared about it in this group, in the 14 days of self-love. And then I wanted to talk about how important laughter was. Well, looking up the information for laughter, guess what showed, and I hadn't seen it before, but guess what shows up in that realm of that topic was the IGA and the digestive system and the oxygen, like all the stuff, right? Totally related to laughter as well.
Nice. Which is so important.
And I just, can't make this stuff up, so.
No, and the synchronicities, right? So we start noticing all the synchronicities, they show up all the time, all day long. Yeah. If we're in the right space for it, like you said, if we're in the past, we're not going to see it, because how can something right now be in the past? It's not.
Yeah.
So it's just exploring the wrong things, and we don't know about the future. It's like, how are you doing right this moment? Those are the important questions asked. Wait a minute. Oh my gosh, I got these bills to pay, and I've got this. Wait a minute. What do I have to do today? Because we get so far ahead of ourselves sometimes, and that, like you said, it creates the anxiety. That's where the anxiety comes from. It's interesting. I tried to go on, because you had posted that book, and I tried to go on to YouTube to listen to the book. And if it would have been Joe Dispenza speaking, because I love hearing his voice, I love how he describes things. I think I could listen to him all the time, but it wasn't. And it's like, oh, I can't do this. I'm not absorbing anything this guy is saying right now. So I'm like, it's just not for me. This is for Amy, and she'll break it down for me, and then we'll talk about it later on. Because I'm in the middle of like reading books about channeling, and it's like really pulling me in, and that's where my attention's being drawn to. Which is so crazy to me, which we talked about recently. We talked about Esther Hicks being a channel, right? Because she is. she channels this information. But when I listened to her before, it was always for the information. It was never about her channeling. And now when I watch her, it's like, holy smoke, she blows my mind. Really, she does. I watched her, and I had never seen this before, but I saw Esther Hicks and Wayne Dyer together, where they sat with each other. I had never seen that video. How long
I
we
just
been?
saw that recently,
Are you
like-
serious? Oh, so
like
she
2
must have
weeks
just
ago.
Yeah, so I just had watched it, and it was yeah, I did watch it all and then tried to find more, because I'm like, I never even thought that Esther Hicks was even having these conversations with anybody else. And it was so amazing to watch Wayne Dyer growing during the session with
Yeah,
Esther, and for him to have his ideals, and like he's like, well, shouldn't we be able to set up ourselves for the day before if we start the 5 minutes before we fall asleep? And she's like, well, but you've already got a momentum going. And I think that was like, that's true. How do you stop that momentum? Well, she's always said, take a nap, go to
Yeah.
sleep. And because she says you cannot keep that momentum going while you're sleeping. And his argument a little bit was that, well, if you don't set up yourself before you go to sleep, those last 5 minutes, now you're carrying the day throughout the night. Well, at some point you're sleeping, and during that time, whether it's for 5 minutes or it's 8 hours, you're still getting an opportunity to slow down the momentum of whatever your thoughts were, the past thoughts, the anxieties, going into the future too much. There was just so much information was there. And then I tried to find one with Joe Dispenza, looking around for that. And I had seen some videos that people kind of clipped pieces of their stuff, but they weren't talking, they weren't having a conversation together. So it was awesome. It's so great to receive these different points of view that we don't always have access to. And I say that because we're not always in the right mind space to have access to it. I don't know if I would have even really fully understood the whole conversation if I had listened to Esther Hicks with Wayne Dyer a long time ago. I don't know that I would have grasped as much as I did recently when I had seen that. It was really, I was impressed. I was impressed how we can talk about things and how he can talk about, we know that he was going to see his dad's plot, go to his burial site in order to release himself onto it.
right.
And he ended up not doing that. He ended up forgiving, which that takes us all back to that Ho'oponopono that you had learned about, what we were talking about last week, that I kind of listened to as a refresher, because it's so great. And it's just all this information, and that's all it is. It's all information to help you get through right now, to have a better understanding right now.
Yeah. It's, again, it's just like, even though we know a lot of this, having refresher for one, definitely. And then allowing more information in, being able to be in that space so your container is expanded, right? I would say, I'm using this as an analogy, like this is closed, but then we grow, and so we expand a little bit. And then once we expand, we open up that space to allow more information to come in. And once we implement what we're learning, now we can expand even more. So it's allowing ourselves to get past the point of being closed off.
And we learn so much more. And even though we do know things, like even for I'm speaking for myself, even when I've like, oh, I know, I totally grasp this. And then I hear it again later on and I grasp it on another level.
Yes.
It blows my mind. And it actually, when that happens, it's even like it resonates even deeper than it did before. It's pretty phenomenal, really, this path that we're all on, that we're able to grow through. And the expansion helps us only to see, that's when we can look back and see, well, we could have done something a little bit different then. And in your mind, it may not change everything, but you can actually revisit that area and imagine that, what if it didn't go that way? What if it went a different way? Because when a situation happens, a lot of times what happens anyways, we end up creating another story from that story, not even realizing we're doing it, because we got so much momentum, we have so much anger, we have so much going on in that process, that we're bringing more shit, and now we're bringing everything in from everything they've ever said, whoever they are, right?
Yeah.
Now we're creating this whole story, and it's huge. You can't do anything about it, but you're talking about the expansion, and the more we expand, we can see where we've cut ourselves off. because we're not hurting anybody else. It's like we talked about last week, holding someone else in the darkness, that we can hold them in darkness all day long, but we're only keeping ourselves there. We're not allowing ourselves to have the full joy, to be in laughter and enjoying all these moments from a perspective, because we're always going to have things that are happening in our lives that from a victim standpoint would be horrible. But when you're open and you're expanded, you kind of like, well, that's interesting. Like we've talked about, this is another way that I can grow, or this is definitely what I don't want, but what would I want with the opposite of that? And that's where it's helped me create a lot of different things.
When you talk about like, so using this as the analogy, if we're closed, then we're sticking to our limitations, beliefs, habits, patterns, programming. And when we allow ourselves to open that space up, now there's more room for things to come in and out, right? We're creating more space for, well, this feels good and it resonates, but then we can allow ourselves to let it go if it's no longer resonating. And I know both of us have experienced that in that space that we're in with ourselves, we're like, oh, this piece of information resonates with me. So because it felt better than where we were. And then as we expand some more information's coming in, and we're like, then we kind of are able to take a look at what we've been doing and going, okay, it felt good, but this feels better. So now I can reform what I've been implementing to make it feel even better. And we keep growing and expanding in that way. So it's a continuous evolution of ourselves and our growth with ourselves and the way we're perceiving life.
It's true. Because otherwise, when you're all closed up like that, everything that's coming for us is like bouncing off the outer shell and it's not allowing anything to come in at all. And then the more expansive we get like that, things come in and go out. We look at things and we kind of witness it more instead of being absorbed by it, or, all of a sudden hooked up on this ride that we got to go ride and we don't want to ride it.
Yeah.
So I like that analogy. It's nuts. It's so.
I tell you what, like cracking myself up because I've come up with some good stuff over the past couple of days that I'm like, where'd that come from? Because that was good. And it's been fun in the sense that because I've allowed my container to continuously open and expand and be open to different perceptions and just seeing life differently. Like I have this vortex of information coming to me in these analogies, and I'm like, wow, sister, that was a good one.
Well, because you're open and receptive to the information that's flowing to you. So that's where I talk about channeling with everybody. We all do it all the time. It's just having an awareness towards
Right.
it. That's all. That's the difference.
And that's the thing, it's like I know that it's coming to me and through me.
Yes.
That it's not just me coming up with this stuff, right?
No, because go back to your analogy, because you're open, expanded, right? That's the only way it can come in. Because if you're like this and so fixed on everything, how things have got to be, and trying to control everything and being miserable, I don't know, blocking everything out, not wanting help and not ever allowing yourself for help. That's you. That's not you. But this is what happens right here. Yeah. And then when you're expanded, I am amazed. I think I told you last week, I decided I was cleaning the house and I'm like, okay, I need some help, angels. Well, and they brought music to me. So music helped me out to get through that process even faster. And then what else happens? I tried a different mop on the floor, and then I use something else afterward, and it's even faster. Like, so there's always ways for things to help out, always. But we just got to ask. It's asking all these things all the time because we're here on free will. We get to make decisions all day long. They're ours.
Yeah. So this is wood behind me. My camera has been great for the past few days because I fixed it.
Nice.
And the guidance I was receiving from another person didn't work. And I'm like, okay, hey universe, I need some help here because I need this fixed, like now, right? And allowing the guidance, and then I was just guided to uninstall Zoom and reinstall it. And it was that simple, but because I was so fixated on this particular way or particular thing that it could be, I was trying everything around that instead of opening up, allowing other information, other guidance to come in to show me the path of what I needed to do.
Nice. But what do you think the message is? So when you were having problems with the camera and it was doing that, do you feel like there was any message for you besides it was irritating sometimes and you still had patience with it?
I think just practicing that, all right, no need to get flustered and frustrated and irritated. Just, there's a solution. You just need to connect to it, right? So the connection of the problem and the connection for the solution is two different energies. And that it was keeping myself in the space of solution. Because even though I talk about it, still a practice. Still a practice.
It's always going to be a practice because there's always something new that's going to come forward. There's always going to be another layer to it. It's something like we've talked about before. We're never going to get it done. There's always going to be growth to happen.
Right.
Always.
Yeah.
It's so fascinating.
But at the same time, it's like in the energy of a solution is lighter. And when you stay in that space of being lighter, then it's just easier to flow with life. It's just the barriers of resistance that we talked about, that negative emotions that we could bring into it, that creates a barrier and it causes resistance, and then it puts our blinders on, and I can only see it this way, instead of looking around and seeing other options and opportunities, possibilities, solutions.
I like that. But it's true. I mean, and we've talked about it all the time. It's just going with what feels good. And how do you know? Well, you have to be aware. You have to really pay attention to yourself, how you're feeling. It's like how we started the conversation out, but a little bit different is if we just kept track of everything that we were saying all day long. And when I say kept track of, just be aware of everything that you're saying in your head all day long. We don't have to be in that same place anymore. We don't have to be creating from the past anymore. And that's, for me, that's kind of been really important, is just to pay attention to it. Am I always on it? No. Do I get wrapped up in the momentum of things going the opposite direction that I want to go? Yeah, sometimes. But the thing is, it's less and less time. I even heard Alex Ferrari, he was in the middle of an interview and he's talking about how before you could be wrapped up in something for a few years, several years. And then it might have been a few months, and then it's a few weeks, and then it's a few hours or a few days. And next thing you know, you're in it for a second because we're having a human experience. And then you're out of it. You don't spend all your time there. So you're not, when we talk about dispersing our energy, and that was what I was thinking about too. If we mapped out like everything, if we drew a diagram of a person, their body, and every single thought we wrote down, not the full thought, but maybe what it was about, maybe it was a past experience or a trauma or whatever. It's like our energy is going there, like you were saying earlier, it's going directly to that. And if we saw ourselves as 100%, and then all of a sudden you see where all the energy is going to, probably not even by the end of the day, you would know that you were not even at 100% anymore. You'd probably be lucky if you were even at 23 or 40%. You know what I mean? We would be that low because we're giving ourselves, and I did it all the time. I mean, I was focused on my environment around me. How are people feeling? How can I make them happier? It was always that way all day long. So the thing is, I didn't know how to function And how can you function? You're not even operating at 100%. I wasn't operating at 100%. How did I manage to get anything done? I don't even know. Well, that's why there's that word struggle, right? Because I created my own struggle,
Right.
but I did for such a longest time because I wasn't operating. It's like having your, your checking account in red, but you're still writing out checks to, well, oh yeah, I can go help these people. Okay, I'm gonna do that. Oh, I can go help these people. You don't have anything more to give. There's nothing else to give. You got to take time for yourself and you got to give to yourself. What does that look like? Well, you have to ask yourself, like, what does that look like? How does that feel? How does it feel to be happy?
Yeah, and along that lines, as you're talking and thinking about Joe Dispenza's book, it's like if we're living in the past in our head, right? And the emotions are following. So we got this combination of mental and emotional past. I'm right here right now, but I'm thinking about that. So I'm living that, but I'm worried about my future. I'm just projecting my past into my future. Like there's no present. The future is the past because that's where I'm spending my time and energy and my thoughts and emotions. So if you're doing that same thing right now, thinking about the past, then you're already foreseeing what your future is going to be your past. Because it's going to be same similar experience, different name, different face. So that's where your energy is, and that's what we believe that pertains to our worthiness and deserving is by thinking about that, then that's what I deserve. So that's what I'm going to project for my manifesting process for my future. So you're already right now, you're already predicting the future. You already know what it's going to be like because you're facing it in the past. And I know I did it. I did it for a long time. Now I know why.
I hear you. I hear you as far as all that goes. And we don't, but it's just all patterns. Because that's how whoever we were around most of the time. It's like whether we were watching, we were just talking about this morning, but whether we were watching soap operas or your teachers or your parents or your grandparents or whatever, we picked up on everything. The old saying, do as I say, not as I do, is that is the silliest saying I think I've ever heard in the world, because we're never going to, we do what we see. We do automatically. It's an automatic. Oh, I'm going to go ahead and be bad, or I'm going to be an a-hole over here. But you can't act that way. Don't go to school and be mean to anybody.
And to say that to children because they're already sponges from that 0 to 7 age, right? They're already soaking in what they're seeing and what they're feeling energetically. So it's too late. By the time you said that, it's too late.
True. And there's some, well, we say too late. They've already got it. But now they came here because they chose whoever, right, for their own growth, just like we've had our experiences. And unfortunately, or fortunately, we seem to want to grow through struggle, pain. Those are the ways that we seem to, like, all of a sudden wake up. I'm done doing this. When stuff starts getting too tough, you hit rock bottom, right? You hit rock bottom. There's nowhere to go but rock bottom. Now you can only go up. That's all you can do. So it's like all these old sayings that we've always heard, all of them. But the amazing thing is there's so many people on the planet that has different information now, and we can make such a huge difference with everybody around us. And that starts with the kids. And it's not necessarily saying anything, because it goes back to the do as I say, right? Not as I do, but which we know is not true, but they're doing what they see. So all we can do is be our best self and show up in the world all the time. And I guide my grandchildren in directions to help them to see. If I'm guiding them towards meditation, I'm guiding them towards breathing, I'm getting them more focused. I'm also recognizing sometimes when they're crazy, that it makes me feel inside too.
Yeah.
And then recognizing that when they get crazy like that. But it's just
And
slowing
the
things down.
opposite is true.
It is.
However you're feeling and they're reacting to that.
Always.
Yeah.
You take any parent, and their kids are going to tell on them. without even verbally saying anything.
Right.
They've already said everything. And it may not all be from the parents, because sometimes they pick up stuff from daycare and everywhere else. But I mean, it's the parents, and if the parents are nice and calm, the children are nice and calm.
Yeah.
If there's a balance and harmony inside the home, then there's nobody acting up or doing anything foolish to get someone else's attention. But they learn, and they're such great teachers for us too, because if we're paying attention and we have the awareness, we can see what's going on. Wait a minute. Why is he acting crazy right now? Why is she acting crazy right now? How am I feeling right now? It's like really checking in with it. There's different ways. I noticed that my granddaughter, we're talking yesterday, and she gets fixated on some conversations. And I'm like, yeah, but that happened. That was in the past, right? That already happened. Is it happening right now? No, it's not. It's not happening right now. Oh, and then I change the subject. Well, how many cats do you have? She says, well, I only have one cat. My mom has a lot of cats. Is what she told me. Well, how many dogs do you have? I have 3 dogs. So I just changed the subject and then I caught her going back on that subject again. And then I reminded her, well, gosh, can we talk about something else that feels good right now? Or, oh, look, there's a tree over there. It's just guiding them, right? It's just a little bit of guidance, because it's not because they're stupid. It's not because they don't have all the knowledge. They remember more than we do right at that moment, but they're in a human experience now. We've been in this human experience for a while. So we can say, hey, you can navigate this way and you might be able to survive. Maybe. Can't promise anything.
And then she'll start to recognize the conversations she's having with you versus the conversations she's having with somebody else who's wanting all the details about the drama.
Yeah. Oh my gosh. And I have been witnessing some dynamics from that sweet child. Master manipulator in some ways. She's going to retire that hat really soon. Because I'm recognizing it, and it's like, well, my mom said, and no, sweetheart, that's not how we're doing this right now. If there's a reason that you're feeling this way, let's talk about it. But that's not, mom's not here right now. We're talking about this stuff. This has nothing to do with mom.
Yeah.
Like, what do you want to do? Trying to find, like, and she'll turn on the tears. Like, she does a lot of the stuff. She does a lot of it. She's really, really good. They both are. Both of my grandkids are good as far as that stuff goes. But because they learned how to be, they're learning how to be for each individual person. And it's like, is that a good thing or is that a bad thing? Do you know what I mean? Because we have growth from that. It's eventually you're going to be like, I don't like the way this feels anymore, so I'm not going to stay in this space. So maybe them going through some of the stuff is part of a good thing. It's their experience, but we get to witness it. Why are we witnessing it? Because it's showing up in our experience. Why is it showing up in my experience? Oh, maybe I've got some internal stuff I could look at right now. There's a whole big reason. It's not like it's like, oh my God, this is horrible, and this is, really worrying and stressing about it, because that doesn't do anything at all. And then we can go back to the whole sending streams of grace, right? We have the opportunity for praise, well, praise too, but for prayers. Hey, it all works. Just ask me, I'll fix it in there somehow.
I was going to talk about the dynamic. So you have, and I'm using you as an example. You have you, the mom, now the grandma, but you, the mom, and your past behavior influencing your children. In the meantime, they're having children and you're changing. You're changing, but your children haven't completely caught on to that yet. So what they've learned from you as children, now passing it on to their children, but now your grandchildren are getting something different from you. Right? And so now they get to see the way I would view it is what feels good, what doesn't feel good. For the contrast between what grandma is saying and what mom is saying. So they're now they get to decide which side of that coin are they going to follow and implement. But at the same time, you have changed and continue to change, and mom's picking up on that. Now that's going to amplify the grandkids changing and growing. right? So they're just in this process. It's to me is very interesting to see the dynamics with with all of you.
So we go back to the whole thing. It's like talking to your younger self. I'm witnessing myself raising myself. I'm witnessing my children that are my old template in a lot of ways, raising the children the way I had done in the past. And now I get to see that, how that plays out. I get to visually see that. Well, then how do I change that? And what do I say? I ask myself, what's the best way I can show up for my grandkids? What's the best way I can show up for my kids? How can I show up best for the world? How can I show up best for myself? So I start asking myself more questions, and I'm always blown away by how it shows up for me. Always. Because it's so much easier instead of resisting, like, God, because sometimes this has been me. Oh my God, I was such an asshole. Like, how did my kids even turn out? Well, at least they survived. They're still alive, aren't they? Like, what kind of bullshit is that?
They got
Alive,
some
but not
bumps and bruises.
surviving. It's so crazy, but I get to witness, it's funny because I've told myself so many times, if I would just talk to my younger self, well, I am talking to my younger self.
You are.
I am. I
Right?
am. And then I'm talking to my even younger self that's
Right.
learning. There's such an evolution going on all the time. And we can't have one without the other. We can't. And it's just like I've listened to Esther again talking about contrast. We can't not it would make zero sense to be here and not have contrast, because contrast helps us to evolve. Contrast helps us to want more. We're responsible for evolution. It's amazing. That's amazing. I heard someone say recently, and it kind of resonated with me. Everyone thinks that if we want to use God or the universe, that God or the universe has all the answers, when God is just living out all these experiences right now to gain more knowledge and to expand more. So we're having an expectation of something else instead of going through, ask for guidance when we're navigating. Just like if you're in a boat, your guidance might be just using the oar a little bit to kind of shift it the way the water is hitting it, so it guides you down the stream, maybe guide you away from a rock or something. So we have an expectation of perfection, that we're supposed to be doing things perfectly. Well, we are perfect. Everything is perfect. We make these decisions, our choices. Guess what? You got to expand from that. You got an experience. And then hearing recently, there is no past. It doesn't exist unless we want to bring it forward all the time.
Yeah.
And personally, I don't really care to live in that experience. There wasn't there's a lot of knowledge and there's a lot to have been gained from that. But to live in that emotional state, to carry that with me wherever I go, oh my gosh. I can't even imagine me, a younger me with so much hatred and anger at me driving on the freaking highway. I would never have made it to 52, I'll tell you right now. The angels were always there. Because I know that I did some pretty foolish stuff.
Yeah.
Some drinking and driving when I was a teenager, and here in town, Kingman was super small. there was nothing here.
Yeah.
There really wasn't. Stockton Hill Road was a dirt road. So, come on. But there's been so much growth from there. And I know there was a few times that I almost flipped my car, and I knew even then that there was angels. But now, like we talked about early in the conversation, my knowing about that is so much bigger. My knowing, because I know that's how I even got to where I'm at right now. They've always been there, always. And I wasn't meant to go out. It wasn't my time.
Yeah. Same here.
But guess what? We had a lot of experiences, and we certainly learned what we like and what we don't like. It's so crazy. It's so crazy to process that, because, right, I was a control freak in so many ways, but I could drink and totally lose control. That was the only time that I would let the control down. That was the only time. Was that a bad thing? Well, I couldn't say it was a bad thing. It was a growth thing.
Yeah. And that's what we're here to do. There's I'm in a community room, so we have other people in here. So so we are here for growth and expansion. And whether we understand love or self-love or compassion or any of that, is absolutely a choice while we're here, based on this human experience. But it's all of it's already in us. So
Yeah, we don't have to go, there's no searching for anything. It's already here.
yeah,
And that goes back to asking the questions again. Of course, why do I not think about love on Valentine's Day? It's so hilarious when we're talking about this, honestly, because it never even processed in my mind that, well, this is the day of love. But I guess I didn't process it that way because I feel like it's been perspective, right? There's been a lot of commercialization going on about it. To me, the excitement is sit down. If you're going to do anything for Valentine's Day for someone else, sit down and make your own card for them. Like if you want to show love that way, because you're also using your creativity, which feels great. And there's such a flow. And we've talked about before, whatever we're doing, whether we're writing a story, we're painting a picture, we're making dinner, our mood has a big effect on everything. If you're not in a good mood and you're making dinner, it doesn't taste good. But if you're in a space of love and you're having fun and you're making that dinner, is like probably the best meal you've ever had. And you've had it a million times. But our energy has everything to do with it. And that's the same thing with today, which of course, when this comes out, won't be Valentine's Day anymore. But for those that are listening now, it's very important just to live right now, just to feel that space of love. And if you don't know, start asking yourself questions, getting some answers for yourself and seeing how it shows up. Well, show me how it can show up in the world for me today. Show me what that feels like. Show me what it looks like. And then see how everything changes for you. And maybe you'll stay out of the past for 5 minutes if you're stuck in that space all the time now anyways.
well, Abraham talks about the being at a buffet, right? So you have all these varieties of foods, and you already know what you like and what you don't like. You already know that. So if there's something new on there and you really want to try it, and you put it on your plate and you taste it and you don't like it, do you keep eating it? And do you go back for more? Hopefully not. The suffering part, though, is that I'm supposed to eat everything on my plate. And I did this, like go to a buffet and put something on there. I just wanted to try it. Even though I tasted didn't like it, I would still eat what was on my plate. Why? Because I was told I had to, right? As a little girl, little child. You eat everything that's on your plate. And so as an adult, I was continuing to put myself in that type of suffering of eating it, even though I didn't like it. Well, I was suffering in my emotions, continuing to live it, even though I didn't like it. Didn't know how to do anything different though. That was the learning and growing part, right? Is how do I move through these emotions with a new understanding, which was something I had to learn. And once I opened myself up to the solution, that energy of a solution, then things could be different. As long as I implemented what I was learning, which was my choice. And I think sometimes it's hard for people when they're watching videos like this and stuff is to understand that it's your choice.
It's all a choice.
So I've been doing this is another moment of yay me that came through me, put it that way. It wasn't yay me I came up with it was yay me came through me. Was I was talking about self-love and that the adults, you know, how we talk about children are sponges, we just talked about it. We soak up with what the adults around us are doing, their habits, their limitations, their beliefs and programming, their patterns, like we soak that into our being as children. The state we're in that state of like children are in that hypnotic state where they take in the information that's around them and it goes into the subconscious mind. So one of the things that came out of my mouth this morning, I was doing another live before this. And what came out of my mouth this morning was that the adults, so here we are adults, and we're still living in the pain and suffering of our past, hanging on to it, living with it, and not implementing anything different because we don't know how, right? We're staying stuck. I call it a tar pit or the lower vibrational emotions. Like we just stay stuck in that. And we blame those adults. We blame all those people for all the pain that we're living with. When at any time in our life, even as little people, at any time in our life, we could release that suffering. This is what came out today was the adults in your childhood instigated the way you chose to live. And you chose not to do anything different. I love the word instigated. That they contributed to the way you're showing up in your life and your pain and suffering. But ultimately, it's been your choice on to stay in that suffering. I was like, dang, I am on a roll these days. I'm gonna have to write a book.
That's really good because it's true. Because gosh, any of our experiences, I'm thinking about that now. Like any of our experiences, I could have carried on that same way of being in life, what I learned, because it was a choice. It was a choice. It was a choice for me to stay in that old template or what I was being taught, which wasn't always great, or I could choose to be different. And we see that a lot of times. We might have someone that's been sexually abused, but doesn't sexually abuse someone else, someone that's been an alcoholic, but has kids that they totally decide that's not my path, that I'm not going to go that route. I've already seen how this works. So we have an opportunity, and it is a choice. We can listen to what they say is what's genetic, and I struggle with that in a lot of ways. I don't really struggle with it. That's not my belief patterns, would probably be a better way of saying it. I don't have a belief as far as that goes. I feel like for me, if my grandfather died of cancer and my mom died of cancer, well, it was two different types of cancers, but it was two different types of lifestyles, but still anger. There was some sort of anger or something within them at that time that created that cancer. For my grandfather, it would be working on the vehicle and the vehicle crushing his 2-year-old daughter or 18-month-old daughter, and then trying to get her to the hospital and running out of gas and then losing her. So that was what he carried. And then to see my mom, I had seen her, and she was the person that was in between two other people that were constantly fighting. There was unrest, and trying to be a people pleaser, trying to fix those things, and then not being able to use voice. So I struggle with using genetics, but there are so many things. To me, that's a choice. I can choose to go this direction. I can live in fear of. I mean, there's so many ways that we can create some of these things that happen in our body because it was a choice. It was where we were putting our energy at. I just don't. It does. So for a lot of that stuff, but for what you were just saying, it does make a lot of sense because if we had a choice early on to maintain that or be different than. And I changed it. I changed my path. I didn't go the route that my grandfather did or my uncle, or I didn't go follow my life that way. I didn't live it that way. Now it created confusion within myself, but then of course that confusion helps me. What happens when you're confused about something? Well, you want clarity, you want guidance. Well, and for whatever I would allow into that little ball of space, because I was trying to control everything. And that means that I wasn't allowing the love to flow in and the answers and the solutions to flow in. I stayed restricted, constricted, blocked off, walled in, however you want to call it. I had the brick house. Nobody could blow that house down.
Yeah.
Nobody, only me. And the only way I could do that was by going inside. The only way I could do that is by listening to my intuition getting connected with you in another group. You know, it was just these little patterns, this little, not patterns, but little steps all along the way that was kind of guiding me this way. And it was my choice to whether I was going to take that step or not. Whether I could stay, oh no, I gotta stay. I don't want to go out in front of people. No, but talk to people, no. And then here I was going to school for massage. What you got to talk to them. There's no way around it. It's pretty hilarious. It's pretty hilarious, the growth that we go through when we stop and look at it.
And just doing tea time, we've been doing it almost 3 years, and I planted the seed of doing it, and we had a few conversations about it, and when you were ready, you were like, yeah, let's do it. It was a choice. Like you just said, you know what, this is not something that interests me. I do not want to do this. And I've been, okay, right? And off I go, and off you go, and still friends. It wasn't like a life altering decision, even though it has changed. It's turned out to be that way.
But it does. And how can I tell? I could go back and watch the videos. I'd be like, oh, good Lord, man, my mind has really grown a lot since those days.
Absolutely.
Even though those conversations felt good. That's the only reason I did it. You dragged me kicking and screaming into doing a class one time. The first time, and I was like, man, what did I notice? I felt really good while we were doing that.
Yeah.
It was nerve-wracking at first because it's the unknown, not knowing how things are going to go. And that's the unknown. When you're moving forward on a new path and you're not operating from the same old template like we always did, it's kind of gets a little bit scary. It feels scary because we're not familiar with it. This isn't, well, that's wonderful. It's wonderful that you're not familiar with it.
It's good. It's good. That means you're getting out of your comfort zone. And when you get out of your comfort zone and have that experience, and then you realize how wonderful it feels, what happens? Your container gets even, your container of energy, good feeling stuff gets, the growth expansion gets even bigger. Because you're like, yes, I want more of that because it felt so amazing.
Mm-hmm. If it didn't feel good, I wouldn't have done it again, ever. I'd have been like, I am never doing that again.
Yeah.
But it didn't feel that way. It felt good. So it was something to process. That's why it's good to go try things, but to go try different things because you just don't know. You just don't know how if you're going to enjoy it or not.
Right.
I get the kids. See, I feel lucky in so many ways because I've got the kids now. I get to play with Play-Doh. We played with Play-Doh yesterday. The last few times kids have been around Play-Doh. So we sit and play with our Play-Doh and make all kinds of creations. And I sit there and think, what am I going to make? What can I make right now? So we make all kinds of different things. And so I get to be a kid again, to be creative and see things. And then I also get to witness my granddaughter trying, because we do this, right? So I see the people pleasing already. I see her wanting to do exactly what I did. Oh, Grandma, it's just not going right. It doesn't even look like yours. I said, well, it doesn't have to look like mine. But I'm already seeing that. She's 4 years old.
Yeah.
And then next thing you know, she started making her own snowman. I said, that is awesome, Vivi. See, it's so much more fun. Even though I made a snowman, your version of a snowman is amazing. So it doesn't we get so caught up in people pleasing and perfection and judgment and not being good enough. And there's so many things that I recognize, and I recognize that I have an opportunity right that moment to change my younger version of myself so that she doesn't feel that way that she felt growing up in her life. It doesn't have to be that way anymore. I get to see the 4-year-old and I get to help change that a little bit or give her a different perspective, not necessarily a change because she has a choice too. She can choose to follow that or not. And we've been making choices since we came into this physical body.
And because you changed that dynamic with her, that conversation, that feeling, that she might go to school and she might make something and somebody, one of her student friends might do the same thing. Oh my gosh, yours looks so great, mine looks horrible. And she might say, you know what, it's okay. It's okay that ours are different, and she might have that conversation with them. So the ripple effect is so far beyond just us having this conversation or having those conversations. The ripple effect, we don't even know. Like, we don't even know how far out it will go.
I wonder if we see that, and if we can see that in our life review. I think I will. That's what I would
I
want
mean,
to
like,
see.
just the good feeling things, please.
Yes. I was going to clarify. Yeah. Because that bad stuff, it felt bad during. I don't need to be, I already beat myself up for that 1,000 times, and it only happened once.
Yeah. We're putting our order in now, universe. We know all the shit we did. We understand the concept of the ripple effect, and we're good. We're good. We wouldn't know what the ripple effect of our goodness was.
It's so awesome. A lot of my old way of handling things in a lot of ways, if I saw an ambulance going by and it was doing something, I'd be like, oh, somebody did something, now it's like I'm sending streams of grace, I'm sending prayers for whatever it looks like. It's just that all these things are a reminder all the time. It's not anything that's ever bad. It's just a reminder. Instead of getting wrapped up in that, like in the news, if you're watching the news, you're like, oh my God, that stuff's happening. What can you do from here? It's like, what can you send from right now? What ripple effect can you do? Well, I can sit there and I can put my hand over my heart and be in my heart space and then feel that heart space growing, because I'm no longer living in that tight ball. I'm an expanded version of myself, and I'm so much more powerful than I ever thought that I was. And probably, but I would say not even probably, more powerful than I will ever have an understanding from this physicalness, I don't think. I mean, because we can only do a certain amount of things from these physical bodies currently.
Yeah.
But this has been, it's been a lot of growth. It's been a lot of growth. And for me, it's been amazing to watch, like I said, the grandkids and the kids, because they may not, I see how they're changing too. I see how that ripple effects happens. I see how, I think it was, I don't even remember the book anymore, but I remember the person saying that she had seen an accident way behind her or was way in front of her, and she was sending prayers for this person. Well, the person that was receiving the prayers actually saw the prayers. And during because they left their body during this whole scene, and was able to see the license plate, was able to see things that they were able to contact that person down later and say, thank you so much for your prayers, for that ripple effect. So many things are underestimated, and prayers go a long way. So it's prayers, sending streams of grace, always asking, how can you show up, and how could you do better? How can you feel more love? Because the more love we feel, a ripple effect, it ripples out to the whole world. When I think about places that are having wars or anything like that, I don't just put energy into that space, because I know that there's a reason for that. There's a contrast for someone to grow from. But I send it to the whole world. I send it to the whole universe. I send it out everywhere. It's not limited to just one little space. And it's a constant reminder to do that all the time. And I feel like that's where we make a huge difference.
And just in that story, that example, the ripple effect of that person, they never were face to face. The person was able to leave their body. The person in the accident was able to leave their body, see the license plate number, and then contact that person and say, thank you for your prayers. The ripple effect of that, just imagine how that's affecting somebody's beliefs that we're separate from each other. And that story that the person in the accident is telling, that story that the person that she contacted is telling, they know there's no way this person who is in their vehicle in an accident could have known. If we're separate from one another, there's no way they could have known that this other person was praying for them. So that in itself, the ripple effect of just that story, that she had her experience, she contacted the person that was praying for her through the ability to see the license plate number, and them sharing that experience together. Their stories rippling out, because you heard it, we're having that conversation. We're rippling that out, right? So it's when you do anything, good, bad, or indifferent, the ripple effect, it's like you can't physically, you cannot fathom the effects. And if the belief of karma is there, that what you emanate, what you put out, what you do comes back to you, you cannot fathom how it's going to come back to you, from what direction, the power, intensity of it, and how all of it is affecting so many people.
And it just goes to show you how worthy we are, how powerful we are, how doing is, it's more simple than we've ever been made to believe it was.
Yeah.
Just by saying those prayers, and just how effective that is. So
good.
it's amazing.
It was a wonderful conversation today, Bev. Thank you for being here with me. And then thank you for every week that you said yes to this.
Thank you for talking me into it. And yes, it was a wonderful conversation. And I do appreciate you very much.
Thank you. All right, my friends, tea time with Amy and Bev. Any final words?
Make it a magnificent week.
Magnificent week. Awesome. And again, I know you guys are probably not going to see this till Thursday, 2 days after Valentine's, but in any case, it always holds true. Love.
Love. Peace.
All right, my friends, make it an amazing week, and we'll see you next time.
Bye.